All right, InfoSec community, listen up. We've got a critical Code Ninja security advisory explainer on our hands today. I'm operating strictly under the principles of coordinated vulnerability disclosure here, and honestly, I need your immediate attention. We've got to neutralize a really severe threat before the adversaries manage to turn it into a widespread active exploit. We're tracking a highly dangerous stored cross-site scripting, or XSS vulnerability, and it's hitting GitLab Enterprise Edition. The tag for this one is CVE-2026-7377. This flaw is literally threatening to compromise the very core of our development pipelines. As defenders of the digital perimeter, we've got to treat this intel with the absolute utmost urgency. Our objective today? We're going to dissect the mechanics of this flaw, understand its blast radius, and execute the immediate mitigation strategies needed to force a vendor patch across your networks.
To really grasp the gravity of this situation, you just need to look at this number, 8.7. That's the CVSS version 3.1 base score they've slapped on this vulnerability. And 8.7 squarely categorizes this as a high-severity threat. And yeah, that score accurately reflects the massive impact it has on both the confidentiality and the integrity of any compromised system. So where is it? The vulnerability is lying completely silent within the customizable analytics dashboards of GitLab Enterprise Edition. It's literally just sitting there waiting for an authenticated user to view a compromised dashboard. The second they do, malicious JavaScript instantly executes right there in their browser context. This isn't some theoretical exercise, folks. It's a direct avenue for attackers to weaponize a highly trusted platform right against its own administrators. And the scale here, it's staggering. We're talking about over 1.2 million globally identified exposed instances of GitLab. That is 1.2 million potential entry points into corporate networks, continuous integration pipelines, and super-sensitive proprietary source code repositories. When a bug like a stored XSS hits a collaborative platform with a footprint this massive, the entire global supply chain is immediately put on notice. If you're running an effective version of GitLab Enterprise Edition right now, you are sitting dead center in that blast radius. That's exactly why this explainer exists, to hand you the immediate mitigation steps you need to lock down your perimeter.
Okay, let's map out the vulnerability lifecycle timeline, because that's crucial for figuring out your potential exposure window. It all kicked off in the pre-disclosure phase. Two white hat researchers going by A Phantom and Joax Carr ethically discovered the flaw. They did the right thing and used GitLab's official HackerOne bug bounty program to responsibly report it. Adhering to that ethical disclosure process, GitLab jumped on it and released the necessary security patches on May 13th, right before full public disclosure. The very next day, May 14th, the vulnerability hit the National Vulnerability Database. That's when we got that 8.7 base score. And then by May 15th, as the disclosure rippled out, international agencies like the Netherlands Cybersecurity Center and the French CERT started issuing their formal warnings. It's a textbook coordinated response for sure, but it also means the clock is actively ticking for network defenders to apply the fix. I'm going to pause this technical briefing for just a quick second to pivot. In this rapidly shifting threat landscape, isolation is your absolute worst enemy. We need to establish a vital, real-time communication link right now to make sure you're getting continuous updates on this vulnerability and the ones coming down the pipe. Consider this a mandatory comms check before we push forward into the deep dive of the attack mechanics.
I'm officially issuing a few security directives here, and frankly, I consider these mandatory protocols for anyone actively defending a network. First, hit subscribe on @cybertech79 and turn those notifications on. Just frame this in your mind as a basic security necessity. It's your direct pipeline for real-time intelligence drops. Second, hit the like button on this explainer. I actually treat that like as a formal ACK, an acknowledgement of receipt for this vital intel. It tells me that the defense community is receiving the transmission loud and clear.
Finally, I need to take a quick census of the battlefield. Drop a comment below right now with your current network status regarding CVE 2026-7377. Are you fully patched, or are you currently vulnerable and working on mitigating it? Your localized intel really helps the broader community gauge the true global blast radius and see how fast remediation is actually happening. So, sound off in the comments, let us know where the perimeter stands today.
Phase 3, the Deep Dive Protocol. We really need to understand exactly how the adversary is operating inside the application logic if we want to properly defend against it. The core flaw here is classified under CVE-79. That's improper neutralization of input during web page generation. Or, as we all know and love it, stored cross-site scripting. In this specific case, the failure is happening right inside the customizable analytics dashboards of GitLab Enterprise Edition. Because GitLab is failing to properly sanitize user-supplied input in those specific components, the platform basically turns into a host for malicious payloads.
And look, unlike a reflected XSS attack, where you have to trick a victim into clicking a very specific, maliciously crafted link, stored XSS is way more insidious. The attacker just embeds the payload directly into the application's database. And then, it just lies in wait.
And honestly, this perfectly illustrates the terrifying asymmetry of this specific attack vector. On one side, you've got incredibly low attack complexity. This exploit doesn't require high privileges to execute at all. Any low-privileged authenticated user can inject the malicious script. But then, look at the high lethality on the flip side. That injected script is going to execute seamlessly the second another user views that compromised dashboard. Since GitLab environments are constantly being accessed by highly privileged DevOps engineers and administrators, this gives attackers a completely silent avenue to execute arbitrary JavaScript right in the context of an administrator's browser. We are talking about potential total account takeover, unauthorized access to your most sensitive CI/CD pipelines, and the exfiltration of proprietary source code. The lethality here absolutely cannot be overstated.
So here is your absolute mitigation matrix. This clearly maps out the affected release trains to the exact versions you need to force a fix. Check your systems. If you're running version 18.70 through 18.96, you've got to upgrade to 18.97 immediately. If you're writing the 18.10 train, specifically 18.10.0 up to 18.10.5, you need to push version 18.10.6. And if you're on the 18.11 train, versions 18.11.0 through 18.11.2, you are completely vulnerable until you upgrade to 18.11.3. Seriously, do not wait for active exploitation reports or for public proof of concept scripts to start circulating. Applying these specific patches is literally the only way to neutralize this threat vector.
Of course, detection is always the first step toward remediation. Security vendors recognized how bad this CVE was right out of the gate. If your team uses Tenable products, Nessus plugin ID 314546 has already been published so you can proactively scan your networks. But hey, note this really critical caveat. This specific Nessus check relies entirely on the application's self-reported version number. It's not actively exploiting the dashboard flaw to confirm the presence of the bug. So once you scan and identify those vulnerable instances, step 2 is executing the upgrades we just mapped out. Step 3, verify the remediation with a follow-up scan. You've got to ensure your continuous assessment tools are actively, continuously querying your deployments.
Phase 4, Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure.
As security professionals, we really need to talk about the ethical framework that prevented malicious actors from turning this vulnerability into a catastrophic, widespread, zero-day exploit. Users need to know to protect their systems. That is the foundational code we operate under. Disclosures of this magnitude are explosive, sure, but they're a necessary step to protect the perimeter. I really want to commend the researchers Phantom and Jacques Scar for using the HackerOne bug bounty program to responsibly report this to GitLab. Their strict adherence to coordinated vulnerability disclosure allowed the vendor to engineer a patch before the dirty details went public. This right here, this is exactly how the system is supposed to work. It gives us, the defenders, the critical head start we need to secure our infrastructure before the adversaries can automate their exploitation campaigns. And that brings our threat analysis explainer to a close. You've got the intelligence, you have the mitigation matrix, and you know exactly what the stakes are. Remember, the perimeter is only ever as strong as its weakest, unpatched instance. Get those GitLab servers updated immediately, and make sure you validate your remediation. As adversaries increasingly target our CI/CD pipelines, you really have to ask yourself, is your software supply chain truly as secure as you think it is? Think about it. Until next time, stay secure.